Good evening, everyone. How are you all feeling?
Good.
Yes, it's quite an interesting time we're living in. Breathe deep and enjoy the ride. So tonight I'd like to start with a phrase I was just introduced to by beginning to read this beautiful book called The Gift of Our Wounds. Has anyone read this?
Who wrote it?
It's Arno Michaelis and Dardeep Singh Kaleka. I probably murdered those names, but it's the true story of two former who appeared to be enemies to one another found the grace and heart and courage to reach out to one another. Arno was a committed neo-Nazi, and Darjeep it was a Sikh. I'm saying that on purpose. I know it's traditionally said Sikh, but I don't like the connotation of that. Whose father was murdered by a terrorist attack on his mosque. So these two decided that the only way to heal, and this is a perfect phrase or theme for this Chiron in Pisces period that we just re-entered, the gift of our wounds. This is a Chironic theme. And so through their interaction, they found a deeper understanding of the nature of the healing that was being offered by the courage they had to reach out to one another and start a dialogue. And there's this beautiful phrase I was introduced to that is like a foundational point of view of the Sikhs. It's called chardikala, and it means relentless optimism. That's their attitude. Regardless of what happens, we have a commitment to chardikala, relentless optimism. And it was that relentless optimism that caused Darjeep to reach out to Arno and began a deep understanding and healing process. So I want you all to keep that phrase in mind as we dive deeper into the matrix and the opportunity being presented by the challenging nature of the portal that's been opened and deepened through this last couple of months. As we're speaking now, as some of you may know, Venus Inanna is in the underworld, and she has now combined with the sun, our local star, yesterday, to anchor a star point which will be active for the next month and a year and a half. I'll start with a beautiful story or experience I had many moons ago. I had climbed up to a ridge above Panther Meadows with some friends of mine to watch the morning star rising. And Venus is now about to become the morning star on November 1st. She was the evening star. And she will now rise before the sun as the morning star for a period of time. So we were up there, and it wasn't even twilight yet, and we were looking out toward the east over this beautiful plateau, and Venus, without any warning, pops up out of the darkness over the horizon as this big, beautiful, brilliant light. So we were watching her for a period of time, and the light, the horizon began to brighten somewhat as the sun was about to rise. So as we know, Venus is that beautiful power of love demonstrated in the human realm. It's the power of us experiencing that personal contact and connection through one another that affirms, supports, and strengthens our experience of our own inner beauty. So she is the light as the morning star in that darkness. After a long period of having navigated through the night, she pops up suddenly with this brilliant, shining light and says, as a herald to the sun, she's like saying that or demonstrating that as I was watching this, that there's a greater light coming. As brilliant and as beautiful as I am, as brilliant and beautiful as the love we experience on the human level is, there's a greater love that's coming, that's directly connected to the source. So as the sun began to brighten the sky, she was overwhelmed. She was dimmed. This big, beautiful, bright light of Venus was dimmed. And by the time the sun rose, we could not even see her any longer, which was a perfect demonstration of this greater light, the love that's poured out from the source, really being connected with our being, that the greater love that we are then overwhelms our dependence upon that human love for our experience of being that love light in the world. So once we have made that connection to that solar being that we are, then the light of Venus, the light of Inanna, the light of Shakti, becomes a herald of that greater light, an avenue, a portal, a gateway to that greater love that we are, that is eternal. Because the sun connects to that eternal light within us. So Venus, having made contact with the sun yesterday, from our Earth's point of view, is now empowered, imbued with power. And as she begins to show herself again, this time as the morning star, filled with that power, that eternal love, she then becomes an agent or a herald of that greater love that's dawning within us. But right now we are in the last phases of what I call dragon work. The Scorpionic phase, Jupiter in Scorpio all year, has opened up gateways and portals to meet our own personal and collective dragons. Anyone seen the movie Avatar?
Of course.
Where the young man's initiation was learning how to empath with the dragon, and so that once he empathed with it, he could ride the dragon and they could both fly free. But it took an act of courage for him to approach the dragon, to empath with him or her, to be able to navigate the apparent oppositional energy they represented to one another. But once that connection was made and an empathic link was realized, and they became each other's allies. This is exactly what happened in this experience in the Gift of Wounds, where we reached out to those who had appeared to be our adversaries to form a deeper understanding and then learn how to fly together. There's all kinds of trickster elements have emerged personally and globally that appear to be counterpoints to our inner light, to be in direct opposition to that which we hold near and dear, to that which we experience as the truth of our being. And there are certain forces that thrive on controversy, antagonism, and opposition. They love to push us into hostile relationship to one another, so that we, through the polarized experience of the other, we get all riled up, we get this intense energy, find ourselves opposed to one another, and they feed on that energy. And yet, at the same time, we're saying, okay, we need to make peace with the dragon within us, learn how to fly, and experience the great gift, the gift of our wounds, so that we can experience a deeper sense of truth, the power of love emerging within us that opens the way for reconciliation and healing. Because these greater gifts within us are actually catalyzed and triggered by the challenge represented by the apparent other. How many of you have been tested in your commitment to love? And each time you anchored that commitment even more deeply in your being, then you found an avenue through which that greater love could manifest. A greater understanding could emerge. A deeper recognition of one another could emerge. that opened up the way to realize a third point, a higher dimension of truth that resolved all opposition and brought an experience of unity back into your life. Just like these two here, the committed neo-Nazi and the Sikh priest found each other's hearts, created that empathic bond, and through that empathic bond gained a deep understanding of the nature of the healing offered. Right now, until Jupiter enters Sagittarius on November 8th, he is floating free, void, basically, wrapping up the entire gift and opportunity of this dragon work that's been going on all year. And usually at the end, in that floating free period, there are master teachings called in by us individually and collectively that sum up the entire yearly process of dragon work. This is a 12-year cycle. So I'm really being alert to the opportunity to gain deep understanding with Jupiter. Jupiter's always opening the opportunity for a deeper understanding. To then sum up and clarify the greater mystery of my own being, the greater mystery of the love that I carry in active manifestation, in being a healing influence, not only on myself, but on others around me. So this love that we carry will find new avenues through which we gain deeper understanding of the nature of the conflict within ourselves, so that we can be clear about how that conflict manifests in our outer interactions with others. What's further bringing this whole process home on a very personal level is that Mercury has also been in Scorpio, connected to the dragon work process of Jupiter himself. And shortly here, Mercury is in the last degrees of Scorpio as we speak. Mercury will combine with Jupiter on the 29th, that's Monday, preparing then for his entry, Mercury's entry into Sagittarius, in a way as a herald to the dawning of this new greater understanding when Jupiter enters Sagittarius in a few days to follow, in a week to follow. So we are currently in an intensification period of the dragon work, Mercury approaching Jupiter, through the weekend, and then finally reaching Jupiter early Monday morning. So this, when Mercury is involved, our understanding reaches a personal level. We understand how it works in our daily lives. We learn how to communicate with the nature of that understanding and share it with others in a way in which that understanding is then understood and realized for a deeper compassion and connection to those with whom we may have felt disconnected from. So this is a great opportunity to watch who shows up in your world, as an opportunity to deepen your understanding of what's divided you. Because these forces want to leave us in a place where we feel divided one against the other, so that we have no opportunity to really hear what the other is saying, to hear what's meaningful to them, and find the greater connection we have, that we're all really after the same thing. I mentioned this in my other talks, that there are entities in the astral world that will love to keep us divided by pushing us into the shadow aspect of ourselves, where we feel we have something to defend. So once you take a defensive stance, then you're no longer listening to, you're no longer hearing what the other person's saying. That's the one giveaway to me that the shadow is active. You'll notice in yourself or the other that they're defending their position rather than listening to what you're saying. And at that point, they literally cannot hear you any longer. And any further dialogue or attempt to explain or share your understanding, your path, your love, will be interpreted as a personal attack. So that when it reaches that point, it's really important to calm down and to realize that some space may be needed for reconciliation to occur, and not to try to push your understanding on the other person. Because that's the favorite game these dark forces love to play with us, is to get us all riled up about the truth that we know is right for us, that we really believe we've anchored to, and then defend it with all of our passion and courage, believing that we are a carrier of the truth, and that that truth must be communicated to others for their own healing and liberation. In fact, if another is not open to or ready to hear what you have to say, and you attempt to impose it upon them, then you've entered the battle plane where these darker forces love to play. Because then the energy developed by that interchange will then lead to further antagonism and misunderstanding. Are you all following me on what I'm saying here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But once I realized that I was dealing with astral forces, these entities had a particular strategy. They were consciously and purposely attempting to push me onto the battlefield. Then I realized the true source of that energetic dissonance, and I could deal with it on a much more conscious and purposeful level. So Mercury will shift into Sagittarius on Tuesday morning. So between now through the weekend and through Tuesday morning, the dragon work is particularly powerful. And we will all individually and collectively have an opportunity to experience what I'm talking about now, and then realize how we can then be clear about who we are without engaging in a battle with another that we love, because we're all brothers and sisters. Once you awaken to that solar logos, that light within you, you realize that no one's your enemy. We're all brothers and sisters here on a path of awakening. But there are times when a healthy boundary needs to be created so that you do not engage in the battle with another that these darker forces are attempting to push you into. So how many of you here are really good at knowing when to set a healthy boundary without getting involved in the drama? Because the first impulse is like is to explain yourself, defend yourself. You're not seeing me. You don't know who I am. When you or another person is lost in their shadow, they can't hear you. They can't see you. So any attempt to explain yourself or defend yourself is just going to fall on deaf ears, and and most likely will intensify the psychic warfare. So I learned to just keep my mouth shut. I have nothing to defend or explain or reveal to another unless they're open to seeing it and hearing it. So I would make a special attempt during this weekend through, especially Tuesday morning, to really monitor whether you're actually hearing the other person, and rather than functioning on what you're thinking you see about the other person, which may be your own shadow element reflected through them. So when I'm no longer able to hear what another person's saying, I say, whether you're dancing with your shadow, just shut up and listen. And you'll be open, really make an extra effort to hear what this person's saying before you respond. And then once you do, then you'll create that empathic bond, that link that I was talking about earlier. And once that empathic link is realized or experienced, then you're no longer talking at the other person, you're talking to them. You're revealing a part of yourself to them. And in that revelation, you're giving another an opportunity to see you at a deeper level. But there's no investment, there's no personal attachment to the outcome. So this Venus star point, which was anchored on Friday, was a particularly powerful template And the reason it's so powerful is because it remains a sensitive point, an active portal through which this Venusian love, this personal love that we express to one another, is revealed and defined. So, looking at the Venus star point chart for Mount Shasta, the Sun-Venus conjunction is right in the first house. The rising sign or ascendant is at 2845 Libra, ruled by Venus. Sun-Venus conjunction in the first house is opposition to Uranus in Taurus at a half degree of Taurus in the seventh house. Uranus's guide or dispositor is Venus, so his own dispositor is opposite him. And Venus is in Scorpio. She is in detriment. However, Uranus, by his very nature, is exalted in the sign of Scorpio. So even though they're opposite one another, they are looking to each other to gain clarity about the nature of the opposition experienced in our personal lives. So that by itself would be an extremely important and powerful signature. And as Glenn pointed out in the last talk, Venus will be making that opposition 3 times to Uranus. So this is an ongoing process through the next month, through the end of the year, basically. So this Sun-Venus conjunction opposite Uranus is then T-squared or grand squared by the nodal axis, with the north node at 1 degree of Leo, the south node at 1 degree of Aquarius. The newly discovered celestial Varuna is conjunct the north node at 247 Leo, part of this grand square. Now what's fascinating about this by itself would be quite powerful. But the sun, Uranus, the north node in Leo is then ruled by the sun. The south node in Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. And who's opposing one another? Squaring them? The sun and Uranus. So this is a kind of a mind-blowing signature here in the fixed signs of our really understanding the nature of the truth that is the foundation of our being. Whenever you have fixed signs involved, there's a tendency to fix your position to a singular point of power that then defines you or gives your life purpose and meaning. However, when you have a grand square with all the fixed signs involved, you're saying, whoa, there's 4 fixed positions here. And if any one of us becomes too overly committed to our fixed position, we're going to have all-out war. So the grand square is saying, you are in the eye of a hurricane. And unless you find the eye of you are in a hurricane, right? A hurricane of forces. And unless you find the eye of the hurricane, the still point, then you will have conflict and opposition. There's 2 oppositions and 4 squares here. This is the most powerful manifestation signature possible in astrology. So many of us have experienced this on a very personal level here, of the nature of taking a fixed position and the consequence it may lead to in being challenged by another one of these 3 other fixed positions, and the energy intensifying to the point where, say, whoa, back up, we need to find the eye of the hurricane, we need to find the still point within, where all of our positions are honored, recognized as necessary, the 4 points being the 4 directions of the wheel, the 4 corners of the earth. In indigenous culture, each of the 4 directions has a specific medicine to bring to the circle. And by nature, they're very individual and different from one another. But that difference is honored and recognized and respected. The wheel is not dominated by any one particular direction of the wheel. In the center, all come together, so that no one direction, no matter how bright and beautiful it is attempting to dominate the center of the circle. They're all recognized and welcomed into the sacred fire at the center of the circle. So that's pretty much the fundamental teaching that has been unfolding for us very personally and also collectively. How many of you have been experiencing this on a very personal level? Yes. So if you, for those astrologers out there, all the dispositor lines actually wind up with Saturn in his own sign in Capricorn. So not only that, but Capricorn being the foundation of the entire pattern, it's been very heavy. It's been a contest of power, of authority, of who's in charge, of how we honor our own integrity and being in authority over our own being primarily. There's a parable in the Bible that says, greater is he who masters himself than he who masters a city. So this is all about self-mastery and internal authority. So, and Saturn will be approaching Pluto, getting closer and closer to Pluto through the next year into 2020. So this is a major teaching underway. But because of this signature here in this Venus star point chart, it's a personal preparation for us to find out what the right use of power is, how to handle our own personal authority, how to respect and honor the personal authority of others, be in command of their own natures, and not attempt to impose our idea of the truth upon them. Any questions or comments at this point, Glenn? All right. Anyone else? Were you raising your hand?
I just had the image. I always tell people where the planets are in your chart is where your work is. So put your finger in the middle of the chart and lay the chart on top of it, and whichever way it's heavy, you're trying to balance it in the center.
Yeah, that's a good image, yeah. Where one part of the chart is like dragging you, the other's down, yeah. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
So, I'm just learning about the Venus star point, but I understand that when you're born, there's a certain Venus star point in action.
Yes.
And how does that, I mean, should we study that? Does that have any influence on your life at whatever point? You'd be looking at your Venus star point.
Yeah, because my Venus star point is a 25 Scorpio, conjunct my Jupiter. So it's a very important point for me in the first house. So it's more important for certain people than others, depending on where it falls in your chart, and how this 3-degree Scorpio star point interacts with that star point.
Oh, so you look at the current one then.
Yeah, and see how that current star point relates to your natal star point. But it's an 8-year cycle of the 5-pointed star being formed. And there's really lots of beautiful information on the web about it. So.
Right, and it's where is this one then in the 8 cycle? Right, to complete the star?
Well, the 8-year cycle creates a 5-pointed star. So this 5-pointed star has been active for quite some time. And this Venus in Scorpio star point is quite a lengthy one. I believe it was the 1920s.
Right.
When the Scorpionic Venus star point became active for the entire cycle of Venus for this 5-pointed star, because there are only 5 signs involved, obviously. So this Venus in Scorpio star point has been active since the mid-20s, and will then finally release in the 2020s. It's like a 100-year cycle. So we've all been learning about this very thing, Venus and Scorpio star point, for all of our lives, basically. All of us are born within that fit, even though we don't have Venus in Scorpio as a star point personally. She's been active through that whole period. And since she goes retrograde You know, she's at 3 degrees now. She started at the end of Scorpio and moved all the way back 3 degrees, and I believe there's another Venus star point 8 years from now, and that'll be the last Venus in Scorpio star point, I believe, before she moves back into Libra, her own sign. So we'll finally make peace in the world.
When will that be?
In the mid-20s. Yeah.
Good time.
But celestials only offer us opportunities. What we do with them is up to us. So the opportunity will be there.
So,
So much of the nature of the dragon work or the initiation we're experiencing is centered around what has come to be called the truth. And this is a really hot word, the truth. This has become particularly emphasized in the what we call the New Age. Okay. I've always had a little bit of an issue with that, the truth, as if it were a noun. And particularly when someone approaches me and says, I am going to tell you the truth. The truth. Not my truth or a truth that I'm experiencing now, but the truth. So I hardly ever use that word now because it's so loaded. But there is a point within our being where we experience a deeper level of understanding, of clarity, of insight about what had formerly seemed to be at odds with one another, unify at a new level of understanding. There's a release of energy. When you experience a deeper level of truth, you'll feel a surge of energy. You feel a release, where former opposites has come together in a greater experience of the beauty and gift of this life, of your place in it as well. The dark side of the truth is, and I went through this as a Jesus freak. I was like totally convinced Jesus was, unless someone accepted Jesus, they were going to go to hell, And I was really evangelical about it, and I was like, I had the truth, and I would make sure that because I cared and loved people, that I would do everything I could to convince them to accept Jesus. I'm not attempting to judge anyone who might be a Jesus freak here now, so. But it was a real important experience for me in realizing how I totally believed and was so totally convinced of this particular truth that I could not hear anyone else. If anyone else even began to talk to me about some other perspective, they were of the devil. And so there's the dark side of what's come to be called the truth. So I've become very careful about how I share my own personal experience of the truth with others in a way that leaves others plenty of room to disagree or to have a different vantage point of the truth that I may gain from. So when I'm in the dark side of the truth, I become very evangelical. I start preaching. And before I know it, I can't hear anything anyone else is saying. And they're trying to back up and say, whoa, wait up, hold on, brother, you're being a little too intense here. I have something to say about this. So I back down and I says, okay, just shut up and listen. Particularly for us men here, we need to shut up and listen sometimes. And just really make an effort to really hear or see what another person is bringing as the truth of their being to the circle. Like I said, with this Venus star point, we have the 4 directions fixed in position. If we recognize the gift and beauty of each direction and its importance to the circle, then we won't be drawn into the shadow side of our own fixity around the truth, so that we cannot recognize the importance of that counterpoint of the different position of the wheel, its color, in creating a whole perspective of the greater truth that's attempting to emerge amongst all of us. And I was getting this phrase today, and I realized that this is the Jupiter and Sagittarius phase that's about to start on November 8th. This is a very, Jupiter enters his own sign and will remain so throughout most of 2019. It's a 12-year cycle. And Jupiter emerges from his hero's journey in the underworld in Scorpio this year, having made contact with a deeper level of truth within his own being. It creates a certain power and passion to share. When you've anchored to a deeper place of power inside of you, there's a tremendous surge of energy. And you want to then share it with others because it's liberated you. You've experienced Jupiter's connected with your liberation. When you experience a true truth, let's put it that way, you will know that it is true because you'll feel a tremendous liberation, a surge of energy, where something that had held you back or held you down is now like no longer there. And this joy and enthusiasm, which is Jupiter's nature, then emerges in a greater, it can be evangelical because you want to share it with others. It overflows in your being. And that's the Jupiter and Sagittarian phase that we're entering into starting on November 8th. So I'm sharing this with you because right now in this Venus underworld cycle, and Mercury still being in Scorpio through Tuesday, it feels like we're really in it. It's like, whoa, this is so intense and so deep. There's no light at the end of this tunnel. I'd even welcome a train, It's like, but this is really epic dark, It's like, and during that underworld journey, it's like, okay, how deep is my commitment to love? Can I love my way through this? Each time I face adversity in my life now, I said, brother, let's see if we can love our way through this one. This is an opportunity to perfect your love, to deepen your love, to understand the nature of love working under difficult conditions. So bring it on, Push me against the wall. Let's see what I'm made of, And once we enter the Jupiter and Sagittarian phase, and then Mercury then enters Sagittarius, like I said, as a prelude to that. And then on election day, as Glenn pointed out last time, Uranus shifts back into Aries, fire sign. Jupiter's in Sag, fire sign. From all of this heavy water and earth energy of this year, we suddenly start feeling this liberation energy of fire and air. Uranus and Mars is in Aquarius, just lightening our load. And it's like, whoa, there is life after death. So I'm giving you all something to look forward to. Any other comments or questions at this point?
What kind of effect is it going to have on the election?
The election window is scary, to tell you, put it lightly. Because we have the election occurs on November 6th. The moon enters Scorpio at 5:02 a.m. Pacific time. That would be about 8 o'clock Eastern time. So the elections will be conducted during the moon in Scorpio.
The dark of the moon, too.
In the dark of the moon, as Glenn pointed out, with the new moon in Scorpio the following day. The dark of the moon, as some of you may know, is always a dying time. This is time to deeply interprocess and illuminate the purpose and nature of the entire cycle the month before. And in Scorpio, it's about a contest of power. Everything I shared earlier with you about the nature of this contest is particularly involved with astral entities, will be highlighted during that period. In other words, if those entities know we're about to break through, they will make their final push to draw us into conflict, so that we polarize and fix positions one to another, and become food for their being, because those entities don't know how to generate their own life force. The only way they can sustain themselves is by feeding on the extra energy that we generate when we're in conflict. So the moon in Scorpio phase every month is a period of initiation, catharsis, and revelation about the deeper forces working within us that would leave us open to those astral entities. So that's true whenever the moon's in Scorpio. But because we have a new moon in Scorpio, and Jupiter is floating free in the last minutes of Scorpio, just before he enters Sagittarius on the couple of days later, it's like the grand teaching of the darkness of the energy that's present on the planet, working through to polarize us against one another. And who's a master at that?
True.
Who's a master at that? Donald Trump? Right? During the elections, it's like, whoa, he's like a major teacher. He's a master teacher in polarizing us one against the other.
What not to do.
Yeah. But his whole purpose is to polarize. And that's how he gets his energy. You notice how he gets off on it. And those entities that polarize us get off on that energy. It's like a turn on for them.
Brainwashing is a terrible drug.
Yeah, but it's an energetic thing. If you watch his energy, not what he says, but how he gets off on it, it's like he gets turned on. That's the giveaway of the presence of those darker forces that get off on polarizing us against one another, because they feed on the energy of that warfare. Yeah, so I'm just not even participating in that. I'm not falling for that game. But it all is coming to a head right on the elections.
That sounds like a pimple, like a bad pimple.
Yeah. But I'm emphasizing this point about the astral nature of it because once I broke through and I recognized the real source of it, I wasn't the people involved were no longer the focus, because I realized they were just caught in this war without having any clue as to what was going on with them. Most people don't. They don't realize the nature of what's influencing them. So they'll look in the horizontal at people rather than saying, okay, where's the source of this energy? And as you become aware of it, then you realize that people just become agents of it. And they're not with the real source of the energy. So deal with the source and you'll make a great deal more progress. And not being ambushed by the nature of that energy. Okay? But it all is coming to a head on election day. And then the following day, the new moon in Scorpio at 8:02 a.m. Pacific time, Pacific Daylight Time.
The 7th?
I mean, it'll be Pacific time. That's the 7th, yeah. Yeah, we'll be in Pacific time by then. At 15 degrees of Scorpio, which is by itself a power point. It's the one of the cross-quarter points ruled by the eagle and the serpent, the Kundalini. The 15 degree Scorpio degree is the most powerful energetic signature of the underworld journey. And the moon will be conjunct the sun at that point early on Wednesday morning, the 7th, opening up the portal for the next month of the completion of the shadow work that may not have been clarified to that point. So I'm just being very conscious during that period of the 6th to 7th, and then by 11 a.m. on the 8th, the moon enters Sagittarius, the very day that Jupiter enters Sagittarius. And then she will quickly combine with Jupiter. Jupiter enters Sagittarius at 4:38 a.m. Pacific time, and then the moon enters Sagittarius at 11 a.m. on the Thursday, and then quickly conjuncts the moon, Jupiter, at 11:06. Breakthrough time. It's like, whoa, we have lifted off. On a more mundane level, California has a Uranus-Pluto conjunction in Taurus in its natal chart. Uranus on the 10th of November on the 10th of November, California will experience a Uranus return, an 84-year cycle of awakening. It's retrograde, so this is a threefold awakening process. And because Pluto is so close to Uranus, Uranus then will conjunct Pluto, California's Pluto, on the 17th, that whole week. This is right after the elections. So talk about a radical awakening. Uranus could involve California fundamentally seceding from the nation. You know, it's like, okay, we've had enough. We're our own country now. We're like the 6th largest economy in the world. There's nothing getting through that blue wall to the west, to the east of us, unless it's love. We are now in an independent country. And this awakening process will continue into the beginning of 2019 with the true genius, collective genius, Uranus, of the natural beauty of this state and our attitude toward Mother Earth herself becoming a real beacon for the rest, not just the rest of this country, but the rest of the world, to open up the way of healing toward the natural world, the beauty and gift of life itself. That's the potential of California, starting this next month particularly, and if these elections don't go the way we hope they would, it could be a real catalyst for California taking its own medicine seriously enough to disregard what others in this country do, but to be the leading edge of this new consciousness, as they were in the 60s, to emerge as a light to the rest of the world. So, yeah. So I'm looking forward to that as well. And on election day, if that weren't enough, the nodes will change sign. The North Node will shift back into Cancer, South Node into Capricorn. For the next, it's in one sign for a year and a half, is that right, Glenn? Year and a half?
Sometimes about 18 months. Yeah, 18 months.
Yeah, year and a half. So this will take us into 2020 with the Capricorn climax occurring in 2020 for us to have an opportunity. The nodes for me are always like a moon retrograde, a lunar retrograde, because the nodes travel backwards, to digest and deepen our understanding of the right use of power, particularly in relationship to our communities, the places we hold within our communities. If we have been given the honor to play a part in our local communities especially, then we will be given the opportunity to handle that influence with integrity and with a deep sense of responsibility for what we set in motion within our communities, to offer a greater opportunity for healing, growth, and enlightenment. And so that will start also on election day. And the United States of America is a Cancer nation, so the South Node shifting into Cancer take about a year to reach, or 9 months to reach the U.S. sun. So this will be an interesting opportunity for the United States to remember its true obligation to the world, to be there to nurture and act as a mothering principle for the safety and welfare of not just the United States, but for all of the world. So we'll see how the United States responds to that. Uranus shifts back into Aries on election day. Yeah. Jupiter into Sag on Thursday the 8th. Ceres shifts into Scorpio on November 11th, 11/11. Ceres, the mother goddess who followed her daughter into the underworld, is in Libra currently. And then she will begin her own underworld journey through the rest of the year, as she basically makes peace with Pluto, because she was the only one who had the courage to descend into the underworld and talk to Pluto about liberating her own daughter, you know, and they formed an alliance and an agreement to have her emerge into the light of day for half the year and then descend back into the underworld for the other half. And that was Ceres, who was promoted to mini-planet as Pluto was demoted to, Ceres was promoted to minor planet as Pluto was also demoted to minor planet. So in a funny way, Pluto's demotion opened the door for that co-equal balance now between Ceres and Pluto, which is a beautiful omen to me. Hello? Through this next few days, chardikala, relentless optimism. Tattoo that on your foreheads. Any other questions or comments at this point? So unless anyone has anything else to offer, I think we're complete for the night. Chardikala.
Chardikala.